All right, our next photo project is assignment 6. And for next class, even though we're still finishing the processing on assignment 5, and it's not due for a critique until next class, assignment 6 is using a similar approach, similar skills, to do a photo collage. So here are the components. The first thing we have to do is kind of sketch our vision, and we need to come to class with that sketch intact. The next thing we do is we have lots of exposures that we start collaging to fill our vision. And then the last thing we'll upload is our finished piece. And this last demonstration I did was about interior spaces and kind of showing and activating interior spaces. So here I show kind of my kitchen and my cupboards and all, and the stove and the sink and the countertops and me making dinner and my son doing homework at the dinner table. And what's neat about it is it's all very subjective. So this is not what my kitchen really looks like, but I've decided how to kind of unfold and tell the story and explore the space. So it's like a panorama that doesn't tell the truth. It's more subjective. If we look at past student examples, you'll see that we've approached it different ways, different semesters, sometimes doing portraiture, sometimes doing landscape, sometimes doing objects, sometimes exploring the campus. Here's a nice one with a guitar, but always made from multiple exposures. So our inspiration for this project, the first person to really experiment with photo cubism was David Hockney in the 1980s, a painter and contemporary artist. Here's a self-portrait. And to try to, like painting cubism before, try to show multiple points of view of the subject within one piece in 2 dimensions. Our theme for this semester is going to be Earth Day inspired. And so this is my favorite image thinking of that. Because though it looks like it just shows this European street in a very creative and interesting way, what I love that he does is he makes these trees much more powerful than they actually are. He zooms in on the leaves and lets those take up a lot more space to make these trees just feel like a commanding presence. And so I feel we can do that through photo cubism, and we can kind of make more of the natural world. We can make the natural world feel stronger than it really is. So I want you to think about it, and I love it just how simple how this chair, it focuses on all the things that the photographer really likes about the chair. The surface of it, the edges of it, the legs and the corners and the rivets. They don't really care so much about the seat. That's visually boring, so that gets kind of collapsed onto itself. And the pigeons just happening in one square corner. So this is what we do to get started. We sketch. And so I'm going to pretend this is a sketchbook again. And we want to think of the theme Earth Day, and we want to kind of think of the things that we have maybe back at our house or around our neighborhood that are available to us. It can be interior or exterior for this, or a combination of both. And the first thing I want to do is kind of brainstorm. So when I think kind of an Earth Day theme, I'm going to start with some words here, just some free association. I think of plants, flowers. I think of pots, leaves. I think of a general theme of man versus nature. And then I think at home, okay, if I close my eyes and I think of these things, where is it that I'm thinking of? And I'm thinking of the corner of my dining room, where I have like potted plants around a bench. And I have like bamboo, and I have a money tree, and I have a succulent. And it's not a great time of year for flowers, so I could go out and buy some flowers. Sadly, all the Valentine's Day flowers have wilted and died by now, but I could invest and bring in some, or maybe even I have some felted flowers. They're man-made flowers, and maybe that would be an interesting counterpoint. So this is why you want to kind of free associate, see where your mind takes you. This is your raw material. And a wooden bench that's around this, because that's made from plants, but it's shaped by man. So these are some of my ideas. These are the things I really like that I want to make sure I use. Okay, and now I'm going to start my sketch. I'm going to do this on a new page, but I want to be able to see my list. So I'm just going to make the width doubled. So it's like a double page spread in a sketchbook. Okay, now, if those are my ideas, I want to think first of what's most important. And what's most important is the plants, right? So I'm going to draw a lot of kind of overlapping rectangles, avoiding horizontal and vertical. These should feel hand-placed, even in my sketch. This sketch is going to be very important for how we lay out the project. It becomes our template. So whenever I feel like I'm going too vertical, I want to angle it. And I make kind of a mass of them, and I let it grow either horizontally or vertically, whatever I think works for my subject. And when I think of my plant, it's kind of bigger on top than it is on the bottom. It's my biggest interior plant is this money tree that kind of drapes. It's got lots of interesting textures. So this, I'm going to make little notes on my sketch. This is my money tree. It's the biggest. And then I have my bamboo. You know, the bamboo looks like this, but I want to capture it in little shots, different exposures with different lighting, different angles, not different shapes. They should all be roughly your camera's native format, right? So this will be my bamboo. And then sadly, because those are both kind of very similar green colors, then I want my felted flowers, my crazy colorful flowers. This will be like a bouquet composition. And these are my felted flowers, man-made. And you're creating your vision, you know, just as you're sketching here. Maybe I want it to lean a little bit more to this side. Okay, and then my succulents, which will overlap, kind of drape like this. So I need to capture those. So I'll need to get lots of exposures of all of these different things from different angles. But I need to find enough connections in my exposures so that they still tile together, kind of like with the panorama. And then what are they all going to have? They're going to have a bench running behind them like this. So I need to get the bench, and I need to get the corners of the bench and the legs coming out of the bench. And those will be all tiled up with different images too. So it's a crazy looking sketch. Once you sketch it out and you're trying to draw it with all of these fairly even-sized angled rectangles, you'll get a sense of how many exposures you need to take. Right? So I see that that's maybe about 50 exposures. And that's a lot. So I have the bench here. But it's basically of 5 subjects, 3 potted plants, or 3 potted plants, felted flowers, and a bench. And I'm going to organize those all together. And then I'm going to shoot them from lots of different angles, from the left side, from the right side, from above. But when I shoot, I am going to do multiple shots. and stream them together like mini panoramics. So I'll shoot there, and then I'll pivot and shoot there, and then shoot there, and then shoot there, and then shoot there. And then I'll move from another angle and shoot there, and then there, and then there, and then there. And then we'll bring those exposures into the computer. And in the next demo, I'll have those exposures, and I'll show you how we use the same photo merging automations within Photoshop to group the photos together and do a lot of the work for us before we bring it all into our finished composition. And ultimately, we want it to look like this. So this wouldn't work if you didn't get lots of exposures that touched and overlapped each other. But really play with the lighting, the angle, but just make sure that they all overlap a little bit. So you don't have just isolated photos. You're building a relationship. So we need the sketch for next class, and we need a lot of exposures, somewhere probably between 50 and 100 exposures. The good news is they can be lit differently, they can be zoomed differently, they do not need to match up perfectly. I encourage you to look at past student examples and just think about this theme of Earth Day and how you can make that work in an exciting way. If you're in love with landscape, you can do it outside. If you're in love with studio and still life, you can do it inside. This is a lot about your creativity and how you can bring your artistic vision into your finished photograph. All right, good luck.